You know, when you think of ancient Egypt, what comes to mind? Probably the Great Pyramids, right? Or King Tut's incredible golden mask, and all those powerful pharaohs. But the story of how Egypt even became Egypt, well, that's way older and a lot more mysterious. Today, we're diving into a little-known period called Naqada III. This was the crucible that actually forged the world's very first nation-state.
And that really is the central question, isn't it? How on earth did a bunch of scattered, competing settlements along the Nile transform into one single, unified kingdom? That's the puzzle we're going to piece together in this explainer. So here's our roadmap. We'll start way back, before the pharaohs even existed. Then we'll track the rise of the first kings and see how their art tells a story. We'll meet the mysterious rulers of something called Dynasty 0, and then, get this, we'll uncover a stunning genetic link that's totally rewriting this ancient story. Okay, let's jump right in. We're starting at the very beginning, Egypt before the pharaohs. This was the true crucible of unification. The period we're zeroing in on is what archaeologists call the Naqada III period. Think of it as the final chapter of prehistoric Egypt. It's this roughly 400-year window where the whole process of forming a state, which had been kind of vague before, just suddenly snaps into sharp focus. This is where the idea of Egypt was really born.
So how did this whole state-building thing actually work? Well, it's a story about the rise of kings and a pretty dramatic shift from a bunch of separate city-states into a single, powerful kingdom.
In the beginning, the Nile Valley wasn't one country at all. Just picture a patchwork of small, independent city-states, each with its own ruler, and all of them constantly fighting over resources and control of that life-giving river.
So how did they finally unify? Let me tell you, it was a long and often pretty violent process. You can kind of trace the path right here. It starts with all those little city-states, but over centuries of conflict, they get whittled down to just 3 major powers in Upper Egypt: Thinis, Naqada, and Nekhen. Then, out of that trio, the rulers of Thinis come out on top. They conquer their rivals, and then they march north to take over Lower Egypt, creating the very first unified state.
Now, you might be asking, what was driving all this conflict? Well, it really boiled down to economics. In Upper Egypt, you had the city of Naqada, which literally means city of gold, and they controlled a massive amount of wealth from gold mines. That money paid for armies and artisans. Meanwhile, down in Lower Egypt, they were the gateway to the rest of the world, controlling these super valuable trade routes. The desire to control both of these economic engines, well, that was the ultimate motivation for unification.
And all this new political energy, it triggered an absolute explosion in culture and technology. The art and artifacts we have from this period are just cool to look at. They tell the story of a society becoming way more complex and way more powerful.
The Naqada III period was just an age of incredible innovation. What's so amazing is how many firsts happened all at once. We get the very first hieroglyphs, which let rulers actually record stuff: taxes, laws, their own history. We see the first graphical stories, which let them boast about their power. And we see the first regular use of the serekh, this rectangular frame that was kind of like a royal crest with the king's name inside. This is literally the birth of Egyptian civilization as we know it.
And nothing, I mean nothing, shows this new idea of kingship better than a discovery at a site called el-Farkha. Here, archaeologists found what they believe are the oldest statues of Egyptian rulers ever discovered, and they're made of dazzling gold.
These little figurines are just spectacular. Get this, their core was made of wood, and then covered in thin sheets of gold, held on by over 100 tiny little rivets. Their eyes are made of lapis lazuli, this beautiful blue stone that had to be imported all the way from modern-day Afghanistan. That alone tells you just how huge their trade networks were. The statues show rulers wearing these symbolic phallus sheaths, an ancient symbol of power and fertility. The thinking is that this represents a king and his heir, showing off this new, powerful idea of dynastic rule. And here's the crucial part. This art isn't just showing anonymous figures anymore. These new ways of writing and carving allow us to finally put names to the faces, which brings us to the dawn of what's called Dynasty 0.
So, what on earth is Dynasty 0?
The easiest way to think about it is like a prequel. It's a modern name that Egyptologists gave to the final generation of kings who ruled right before unification. They weren't quite pharaohs of a united Egypt yet, but they were the powerful guys who came directly before the famous First Dynasty.
And for the first time, we have names. Here are some of the kings we know from Dynasty 0, and you can really see the division that still existed. In the south, in Upper Egypt, you've got rulers like Scorpion I, Iry-Hor, and Ka. And up north, in Lower Egypt, you had a totally separate line of kings like Double Falcon and Wasner. You can literally see the divided kingdom right here on this chart.
This whole era of competing kings, this divided land, it all finally comes to an end with one pivotal figure, Narmer. He is the one who gets the credit for being the final conqueror, the guy who finally brought Upper and Lower Egypt together and became the very first king of the First Dynasty.
But wait, the story doesn't end there. We now have a totally modern scientific twist to this ancient tale, and it's all thanks to a groundbreaking study that connects archaeology with cutting-edge genetics.
In 2025, scientists pulled off a major breakthrough. For the first time ever, they successfully sequenced the entire genome of a person from Egypt's early dynastic period. This gives us a direct look at the actual DNA of the people who built this new nation.
And the results were absolutely stunning. As you'd expect, most of the person's ancestry, about 78%, was linked to local North African farming populations. But here's the kicker. The other 22%, almost a quarter of their genetic makeup, was most closely related to Neolithic people from Mesopotamia. This suggests a direct connection that goes way beyond just trading pots and beads.
And don't just take my word for it. The study itself concluded that this provides direct evidence of genetic ancestry related to the Eastern Fertile Crescent in ancient Egypt. So we're not just talking about trading goods anymore. This is evidence that people themselves were moving from Mesopotamia into the Nile Valley during this foundational time.
And that leaves us with one final, really provocative thought. We already know that big ideas, like writing and certain styles of art, seem to pop up in both Mesopotamia and Egypt around the same time. So, if people were actually migrating, what powerful ideas about kingship, about how to run a state, and about new technology traveled with them, helping to spark the birth of the entire Egyptian nation? It's a question that connects our oldest history with our newest science.
Thanks for watching, and if you like the content, then please hit the like button.